All right, what's up, gang? Tonight, the gate was 9.3 million. Attendance was 19,039, sold out. The fight of the night was Aldana versus Rosa. The performance of the nights were Shamil, Lipsky, and Emmett. They all won $50,000. Congratulations to them. I guess before I get started, I'll announce some fights for you guys here. This Miami card is stacking up to be badass. Michael Venom Page versus Kevin Holland. Song Yadong versus Jan. Gilbert Burns versus Jack Della. And Ian Gary versus Jeff Neal. Who's got the first question?
We're just going to drop Michael Venom Page in there? Like, it's a new matchup? I mean, what do you think about his?
These are the fights for Miami.
Very nice. I guess I just want to ask you off the top, Bryce Mitchell, an update for him.
Yeah, he's been released. He's good. Sure he's not great, but he's good. Yeah, he's good. He's healthy. He passed all his tests, and he's okay.
Good.
He's been released from the hospital. And he was, like, halfway through the show. He was released.
Awesome.
So it wasn't like just now.
Main event, a little bit of a perplexing main event, I guess. What were your thoughts on that?
I guess my take on it is, and you guys can let me know what you think, but when you're 35 years old and or any age in this sport, you're like, yeah, I'm going to wait. Waiting is never a good idea in this sport. This sport doesn't wait for anybody. And I think he looked slow tonight. He got out wrestled. Leon looked good. Leon looked fast. Looked like he had trouble dealing with his speed, and then getting out wrestled too. And not to mention the fact that Leon absolutely destroyed that leg too.
Yeah. So we talk about him waiting. I mean, I think the thought was along the way that you guys were kind of holding him out for a title shot. Were there other fights you wanted for Colby?
I don't ever have anybody wait in this business, man. This is not a business that waits for you.
Yeah.
Your windows are very short, and you never know once you start getting up into your mid-30s when you're going to show up and just not look like you anymore.
Yeah. Bilal Muhammad was the backup this week. I think you said he's next. Just still seemed like the next fight for him.
I'm not even thinking about that right now.
And last thing I'll ask on the main event with Leon, do you have an idea, like, let's get him back to England now, or we like him here in the States now, or do you have an idea, a plan, like, where it makes sense for him to fight?
Obviously, it makes a lot of sense to have him fight in England. If you look at what the kid's done, he beat Usman twice and just beat Colby. You know, Colby's the guy that I was saying if Usman didn't exist, he'd probably be the dominant champion in that weight class, and Leon beat them both. So, yeah.
Nice.
Much respect to him, and he looked incredible tonight.
Co-main event, Alessandro Pantoja looked very good.
Yep.
Against a tough opponent, I guess. What did you think about his performance?
Yeah, same. I mean, he looked great tonight. He looked great. Shavkat threw me off in the beginning when the way he was grappling instead of striking. Then he ends up submitting Wonder Boy, who's never been submitted. So Josh Emmett, holy shit. I mean, that punch was so loud and devastating, and, and then the whole undercard. I mean, the undercard was incredible.
Yeah. The last thing I asked about flyweight, we got Brandon Moreno and Amir Albazi coming up. Do you kind of look at that as a number one contender fight now?
What's the question?
Brandon Moreno and Amir Albazi. Do you look at that as a number one contender fight?
Probably.
And then last thing for me, it looked like there was a little skirmish in the crowd today between Strickland and Trickus du Plessis. I guess, what can you tell us about what happened and your thoughts on that?
So what kind of an asshole sits Strickland next to du Plessis? This asshole. That's who. Yeah.
I mean, you actually manually did the seating assignment for that?
I do every seating assignment every week. Yeah.
All right, so that's on you.
Yep.
Do we know
How fucking stupid is that? I mean, seriously. Well, I don't know what humans you can sit Strickland next to, but definitely not du Plessis. It was. I don't even know how I missed that, and yeah. So.
I guess everything's good. I mean, just shit happens, and we move forward.
This is the business we're in. I say it all the time. Jumped in there, told Strickland to relax, go in the back. He decided to leave, so he left the arena, and, du Plessis is good. We were just literally talking to him right outside the door there. So, gentlemen, we are in the fight business. And ladies, we're in the fight business. And these are the things that happen.
Dan, right here.
Hi.
What do you do with Tony Ferguson moving forward? Because obviously he took a lot of damage in that first round, but then he tried to fight back, and I think that's, what, 6, 7 losses in a row now.
I would love to see Tony retire.
And what do you go with Paddy Pimblett? Obviously, Tony's popular, but like I said, he's on that kind of that skid. Do you now skyrocket him up?
Well, listen, when you talk about a skid, right, you look at the guys he fought, too. And that plays a factor into it. And how did he look right up until he lost? Tonight, Tony did not. Tony tonight looked like he should retire.
And a similar question, Cody Garbrandt, where you go with him? He wants to fight Deiveson Figueiredo, possibly UFC 300. A lot of people saying it looks like the Cody that fought Dominic Cruz when he won the title.
Cody looked damn good tonight. Yeah, he looked good.
I do have to ask, I know you said that we're in the fight game and people say mean things, but did anything this week bother you at all?
Absolutely.
Yeah.
It bothered everybody, I think. Listen, what I say is true. We're in the fight games. Lots of mean things are said. And one of the things that I really don't like is family. When you start going after family and whether it's the kids, the wife, the parents, the whatever, it's just such a nasty thing to do. But again, this is one of those sports where you say horrible things and then 24 hours later it goes down. You know what I mean? And that's why tonight you saw Leon's corners going crazy, and I went over and said, guys, listen, you won. You won in the most dominant possible way to win. You out-wrestled, you outstruck, you completely dominated tonight. If this turns into what it could possibly turn into, he's going to get fined. And it's not worth it. It's not worth it. You won the fight.
Last one for me. Do you have to, like, when Colby brings up, Leon's murdered father, do you have to pull him aside and say, like, hey, maybe don't say stuff like that? Because Leon tried to get after Colby at that press conference you weren't at.
100%. Yeah, no, I don't ever tell anybody what to say. You know what we will say? Guys, when you go out on that stage, do not touch each other. Everybody thinks that I love when these type of things break it. No, I don't love it. And more importantly, the commission doesn't love it. And the commission is the government. So, no, we don't like this stuff, and we do everything in our power to make sure that it doesn't happen.
Dana, down here. With Colby and his performance tonight, obviously the time away from the cage probably was a factor, but do you think there was pressure on him, like, involving Trump to the level he did, wanting the belt wrapped around by him, 35 years old, potentially last title shot? Do you think maybe the pressure got to him a little bit?
Yeah, I think pressure gets to everybody. I'm sure Leon had a ton of pressure. I mean, he was just talking about what he said about his father, and, the last thing you want to do is now go out and lose to that guy. All these guys deal with pressure. But Colby's been in big fights before. This isn't Colby's first rodeo. He's been in big fights, and Colby just looks slow and old tonight, in my opinion.
Did Trump give his feedback on Colby's performance?
No, I think everybody felt the same way. I mean, he got out-wrestled by Leon tonight.
What did you make of that from Leon? Just the fact he wanted to do that as a statement. It was kind of his way of getting back at Colby for the words, right? Were you admiring that, or do you think, hey, that's a risk against a guy who could out-scramble?
No, I would imagine that, if you look at Leon Edwards' last 3 fights, he's going up against 2 of the best wrestlers probably ever in the division, right? I mean, off the top of my head. And I'm sure he's been wrestling his ass off, and it really showed tonight.
With the Strickland-Duplessis thing, were you at least grateful that Sean asked the kids in between them to move out the way first?
I didn't know that. That's awesome.
And last one from me.
Could you step aside so I could assault this gentleman, please? Thank you, children. Yeah, no, not good. I was bummed out there were kids at the press conference that day. You know what I mean? Yeah.
Wild week. Last one from me. Just talk about MVP signing with the UFC. What you expect from him in that fight with Kevin Holland?
I think it's going to be great. I mean, that's why we made that first matchup. That's a fun fight between 2 guys who let it all go. It's a good one.
Hi, Dana, right here.
Yep.
I'm just curious. Aljamain Sterling tweeted that he had tickets tonight and that they got pulled. I'm wondering if you know anything about that.
Well, they were tickets that he was with a sponsor. I don't know how they got pulled or what happened, but the team reached right out to him, and he was like, yeah, never mind. I'm good. I'm going to leave.
Okay. Also, it's been a while since we've talked, but the Power Slap was approved in California. I'm just wondering if there's going to be an event maybe around UFC 298?
Yeah, so going into next year, You're going to see a lot of states open up in the first couple of months. We should have 5, 6, 7 states in early 24. And yes, we will start traveling around and doing events.
Thank you.
Thank you.
Dana, right here, right in front of you. What were your thoughts on Shavkat Rakhmonov's performance tonight? Obviously, another dominant win against a tough guy.
Yeah, he looked good. I was a little shocked at the grappling, pushing against the fence. I didn't see that coming. But then he ended up getting the takedown and the submission. And, the first guy to submit him.
And on the opposite side of the equation, Wonder Boy, I'm just curious, where you think he goes from here. He's getting older in age, but he's still pretty competitive. He's had some wins recently.
Yeah, I don't know. I mean, that's something he and his team are going to have to talk about. He's not in the same situation that I feel Tony Ferguson is in, so completely different.
Then one more thing about the Strickland incident. There were some police officers that were involved kind of breaking it up. To your knowledge, was there any sort of legal issues?
No.
No.
I'm sure the police got better shit to do than, 2 guys who are going to fight here in a month, getting into a, skirmish here at a fight.
And when it gets physical like that, would you ever consider fining? I'm not talking about the trash talk and stuff, but in terms of actually
No. It's my job to make sure that stuff doesn't happen. If I wasn't an asshole, those two wouldn't have been sitting next to each other. It blows my mind that I let that slip. It just blows my mind. Yeah.
Thanks.
Dana, right back here in the middle.
Mm-hmm. Hey.
Right back. Dana, Brittany Palmer's last UFC event. Obviously, there's a lot of ambassadors who don't fight that are part of the UFC family. Just what are your thoughts on her run in the UFC?
Yeah, her and Ariane both. So they both done their last walk, I guess you would call it, and they've been awesome, and we loved having them here, and yeah, it's all good.
A lot of people, myself included, were surprised there wasn't a surprise announcement of the main event for UFC 300 at yesterday's big seasonal press conference. Are you planning to go big when you do announce that one?
Well, we're still working on Miami. Miami is becoming this ridiculous card right now, too. So as we head into the new year, we'll start getting 300 dialed in.
And then
we wanted some stuff to play out first.
Thank you.
Yeah.
And then finally, just curious, was there any talk about trying to rebook Ian versus Vicente Luque, or did things just fall apart?
We offered Luque a bunch of fights. He turned them all down.
Thank you.
Yep.
Over here. Obviously, your newest matchmaker, Joe, he had a fight play out today between Cody Garbrandt and Brian Kelleher. I guess, how'd you have that fight? What'd you think of that fight, and what'd you think of Joe's first fight as a matchmaker?
Okay. Yeah, got it. You threw me off for a minute there. Yeah, great fight. Yeah, great fight.
And,
right until the end, it was an awesome fight.
And you just mentioned there Vicente Luque, he was supposed to fight Ian Gary, but obviously Kevin Holland, I'm sure you saw, he kind of threw his name into the hat as a potential replacement. Now that we know that he's fighting MVP, was there ever even a possibility of Kevin Holland stepping in to fight this weekend?
No.
And do you think we're going to see more seasonal press conferences going forward?
Yeah, we've been doing them for a long time.
Oh, I was just asking because, it's like the first one in a long time.
Yeah, well, we went through COVID.
Yeah. Thank you, Dana.
Yep.
Dana down here too, right? Dana
Yep.
Talking about the signing of MVP, you're throwing them straight into the deep end with Kevin Holland. Is that because of his age is kind of getting up there? He's 36, 37, I believe, or is that because of how highly you rate his skill set?
Yeah, I think it's a lot of things. I think it's his age and his experience, and it's the right fight to make.
And I know earlier this week you said that you are going to come back to the UK. Is that going to be 2 shows? Because it's looking like March is going to be unlikely at the O2 Arena, so it looks like at the earliest you'll probably come in the summer. Would a end of year show like maybe December or maybe even earlier?
I don't know yet. We haven't really got that far. We're coming into 24 right now, and we still have a lot of TBDs on the board, so we're still kind of figuring that out, but we're absolutely coming back to England, yes.
And final one for me, UFC 100 and UFC 200 had fights that still live in this memory, like today, obviously, 14 and then 7 years ago. How big do you plan on making UFC 300, and do you think that you'll be able to top those 2 cards?
Well, think about tonight, the buzz and the energy around tonight's card, and look at the stuff that I'm telling you guys about Miami. So we got to beat, this, Miami, and a bunch of other great cards that are going to happen this year, so... I don't remember who I was talking to, but the way I see UFC 300 is when it comes out, people are going to be going, holy shit, that's the first prelim of the night? That's what UFC 300 is going to be. Thank you.
Danish Giant, you're right. There's a popular streamer online called Neon, and he said he was banned from the arena tonight, specifically by...
He said he was banned from the arena? No, what happened is he said some stupid shit on Instagram, and, you know, he bought tickets so he wasn't anywhere close. When you start saying stupid shit like that, yeah, you're probably going to get busted up and thrown out of here, you know, making threats and talking dumb shit, looking for clout.
I believe he said he was going to...
I don't care what he said.
I think he said he's going to confront Donald Trump.
I don't care what he said. Did he?
Well, he wasn't able to.
He's this fucking tall, too. You know that? Fucking punk.
Thank you.
Yeah. Nice
Dana,
talking to you.
Dana, just on the left here.
Yeah.
Islam Makhachev has spoken about potentially going up to face Leon. Is that a fight you're still interested in making? And did you get the chance to talk to him and get his thoughts on the fight?
What's the question?
Islam Makhachev has spoken about wanting to face Leon and moving up. Is that a fight you'd be interested in making him? And did you speak to him and get his thoughts on the fight?
Yeah, I had lunch with him a couple days ago. And we didn't really talk about fights. We talked about family and all kinds of other stuff. So I don't know. I'd like to see him stay at 55 and yeah.
And you just spoke of Neon, who's a content creator. You're a big supporter of content creators like the Nelk Boys, Nina, for example. How important are content creators for you in getting a younger eyes and a larger audience, eyes on the sport?
Yeah, listen, my whole blueprint over the last year and a half has been all about that. So I'm very into it and have a lot of great relationships with a lot of these creators.
Awesome. Thank you.
Yep.
Dana, in the back.
Yep.
In the back.
Dana, right here?
Yep.
No, back here.
Oh.
Sorry
Hi.
about that. Hi there. So you made some announcements about fights for 2024. A few months back, you also talked about the Sphere and booking it for Mexican Independence Day weekend, making that the biggest combat sports event in history in that arena. Callum Walsh was here tonight. Is it possible that that would be a crossover event? Would you have MMA and boxing in an event, or are you booking Callum for something in Las Vegas?
Yeah, I would never do a crossover event. I would either do boxing or I would do MMA. And I don't know if I said it would be the biggest event ever, but it will be the best. That's what I said. It will, you know, creatively and what we're able to do inside the Sphere, it'll be the best combat sports show you've ever seen, and definitely very unique. And then, no, I'm not planning on Callum. Callum will probably fight in Ireland next year.
And just to follow up on boxing, we saw you recently with Vinny Pazienza's belt. And today's Vinny's birthday. Did you talk to Vinny? Did you wish him happy birthday today?
Yes, I did. I wish him a happy birthday today, yeah.
Thank you.
Thank you.
Dana, right here.
Go ahead, buddy.
Ian Gary versus Jeff Neal. Was that the plan for Ian Gary if he had got through Vicente Luque tonight?
No. We wanted to remake that fight, is what we wanted to do.
So I met a bunch of Irish fans outside the arena. They flew over to see Ian Gary. They were begging me to ask you about the Irish event, when it might be happening. I'm wondering if you're feeling a little bit festive ahead of Christmas. And
well, the Irish event I was talking about wasn't UFC. It was boxing.
Right. So the UFC is not going to come back in 2024?
Well, I didn't say that either. I don't know.
Okay, thank you.
Thank you.
Hey, Dana.
Go ahead. Yeah.
I'm curious, you know, the conversations you've had with Colby, because you mentioned that, you know, waiting is a bad thing and the window is so small. And, you know, he was really good. You know, he was like right there with Usman, who was the pound for pound best in the world. And not only that, but he also sells. Like, you know, people want to see Colby fight. Did you give him the indication of like why he hasn't, you know, he's had these bouts of inactivity?
That's actually a good point. One of the things, you know, this gentleman over here, I think, asked me about or one of you two, about what's too much and when it comes to you know, the trash talk. After that press conference, or during, in the middle, or whatever, pay-per-view shot up 25%. Literally, you can literally, and it wasn't like they were, like our analytical team was basing it off YouTube views. They were basing it off actual pre-buys while the press conference was going on and ended. 25%. Globally, too. Not just on ESPN, globally up 25%, which is fascinating, absolutely fascinating.
So he was also leaving money on the table in a sense too. By not fighting more often, he was leaving money on the table.
Well, I mean, you see guys that want to wait. I mean, Chandler's waiting right now, and I mean, there's a whole laundry list of guys that I could say are waiting.
Colby wasn't waiting for Conor. Colby was waiting for something else.
Yeah. You know? Well, no, he's waiting for a title shot. Yeah.
You've made your feelings pretty clear about PFL and Bellator, but I'm just curious about your opinion about the loss of another major promotion. Some managers have kind of expressed their concern on social media, like there's fewer fights for some of the fighters who are not in the UFC now.
You mean
Bellator?
Bellator going to PFL?
Yeah, Bellator kind of going away essentially.
Yeah.
Is that a bad thing for kind of the state of?
It is a bad thing, You guys ask me loaded questions, so that I will.
I'm asking around.
No. I'm not talking about you. Guys will ask me loaded questions to push me and to get me to say what I want to say. So what I will say, so you can get your fucking clickbait that you need and want. But yes, it's a bad thing. It's not a good thing for there to be less options, not only for fighters fighting, but guys who are coming up to have less options. So yes, it's definitely not a good thing.
Thank you.
Yep.
Hey Dana, back
Yep.
here. Back with Shavkat Rakhmonov. With his performance tonight, the fact that he's 18 fights, 18 finishes, exciting. Seems like the crowd loves him. Like he was the only foreigner that wasn't booed tonight. Is there a chance that he can leapfrog Bilal and get that title shot? I know timing's everything. You don't make fights, but is he in the conversation?
Yeah, I mean, the guy's undefeated, and everything you said is on point. Yeah, and right here, right now, I have no idea. We got to get back in the room and talk, and we're dark here for next few weeks, so we'll get a lot of shit done here through the holidays.
Do you happen to know Trump's reaction to Colby's performance?
Did what?
Do you happen to know Trump's
Well, I mean, like I said, I think he felt the way everybody felt. I mean, I don't know what you guys' opinion was, but mine was that he looked really slow. He had a hard time handling the speed. Could never really get off because of the speed, and even got out wrestled. So, he didn't voice anything. He waited till Colby spoke after the fight and wanted to hear his, his interview. But no, didn't really have much to say.
Colby was saying that if he had won, Trump would have wrapped the belt around him. Is that true?
No.
And then finally,
Do you think Secret Service is going to let him get up there in the middle of the octagon?
I'm pretty,
Definitely not.
I'm pretty gullible. 2023 is wrapped, and 2024 is coming. Is there a specific fight, specific fighter, specific moment of this year that that I guess you would remember from this year?
No. The problem with me is that I'm one of these guys, like you guys like to ask me lots of questions about, legacy and the past and the this and that. I don't ever really even think about the past. I'm always thinking about right here and tomorrow. I'm always looking forward. Maybe I should be a little more nostalgic and look around sometimes and think about stuff, but I don't. I'm always thinking about what's next.
Thank you.
Thank you.
Dana, I could kind of see your take on this question kind of already, but was there an event that you were just kind of stands out to you from being a part of this year, or is that the same answer for that one too?
It's funny, man. I feel like every one of our events are always awesome. I mean, every time we go to MSG, the last Miami show was incredible. But I love the Contender Series, man. We're sitting in the office, and literally everybody gets up to leave to go to the Contender Series, and I love those fights. I love that show, and I love those fights. That's like my highlight of the year, are those fights. And I like what's at stake, and that it's live, and it's right here, right now. Who are you, and what do you got? It's just everything about the Contender Series I love.
For sure, yeah. Always put on great fights out there. And like you said earlier, you'd like to see Tony retire. In case he does go up to you and say, I want to continue, are you guys going to offer him another fight, or is that kind of like a let's sit down and talk about it?
Yeah, listen, Tony's been an absolute warrior and a dog in this sport. And, I don't want to disrespect him by publicly talking about him retiring, but I would love to see him retire. That's really where my head's at.
Dana?
Yep.
First of all, congrats for 2023 season.
Thank you, buddy.
In terms of money, like the as a business, this season, 2023, was one of the best in the UFC history.
Yeah. So what continues to happen is, and when you think about COVID, right? When we came out of COVID, think about all the places that we still haven't been in years now, that are still, like when we roll into Toronto, Canada again. We haven't been there in years. I haven't been there in years. That's for sure. And Toronto's always a fun spot. Always great fans up there. The energy and the buzz up there. And I love the city of Toronto. So as we start to go into these other markets, let me give you an example. Ioli hits me up tonight, and he's like, "Hey, what's the gate? What's it going to be?" And all this shit. And I told him, 9.3 million. He's like, "Wow, I didn't realize the gate was that big," and whatever. Where does that rank all time? Ranks number 15. So if you look at what's happened over the last couple of years coming out of COVID, these gates continue to go like this. I think you're going to see that in 24 too. So we go into these new territories, call them fresh territories that we haven't been in a while.
Awesome. Talking about territories that are not that fresh, like Brazil. In 2023, UFC went to Brazil twice.
Yep.
For 2024, how many events can we expect in Brazil?
I don't know that right off the top of my head either, but, obviously, how I always talk about Mexico and England, and, Brazil is a very important market that's, not only loaded with tons of fans, but tons of talent. So we're always going to be going to Brazil.
Pantoja, Alexandre Pantoja, he was asking tonight that he told me he's going to ask you and the UFC to give him the chance to headline or maybe be the common event in Brazil. He wants to fight in Brazil. Do you see that happening? Do you think it's possible for the first semester in 2024?
Yeah.
Nice. Okay. Last two questions. Do you have any update about Charles Oliveira and Paulo Costa when they're fighting? Is there any negotiation with them both?
No.
Last but not least, Saudi Arabia. You were talking about that. It's going to happen, the first UFC event there, right?
Saudi Arabia?
Yes.
What's the question about it?
It's going to happen, the first UFC event over there, right?
Yeah.
So since it's the first, and can we expect like something huge, like maybe even though it's a
You
fight
talking about the card? Will the card be great? Yes, going to put together a badass card for Saudi Arabia.
Even though it's not a pay-per-view, can we expect like a title shot headlining?
It's a great question. It's the first time we've ever been to Saudi Arabia. Obviously, those guys operate at a very high level, and we will bring a not typical fight night to Saudi Arabia.
Dana.
This has to be the best audio we've ever had in this press conference, in this tent.
There's no helicopters right
Yeah,
now.
Elliot.
Well, there's some fucking machine. I can hear everybody here, and I can't hear anything ever. This
Even
is
me.
incredible.
Yeah.
Even you. Well, I understand you. This is unbelievable. Yes.
Dana, down here to your right.
Yeah.
You talked about new territories, and every time I speak, I always ask you about UFC Africa. I know that's something that you said that's going to be a bucket list thing for you.
Yeah, it's super important to me.
Can you provide any
So,
timeline for
so
that?
here's the thing when we talk about UFC Africa, right? Dreykus, he's South African. So there's this whole thing about, well, if you go to South Africa, you're not really going to Africa. You know what I mean? But if the guy who ends up being the guy is from South Africa, then we would probably start in South Africa. And then that my long-term goal is to really plant some roots there, like we're doing in Mexico, like we did in China, like we're going to do in other spots too, and start pumping out young talent from that country.
And obviously you mentioned South Africa there. What other countries have you earmarked as potential locations?
Well, we've talked about Nigeria. You know what I mean? We've talked about, what was the two? There was Nigeria, Rwanda were the two places that we're talking.
Dana.
So the three places, South Africa, Nigeria, and Rwanda.
Wonderboy walked out with Jack Black and Tenacious D Gang. Any chance more of the same from fighters if they propose the idea to you?
Yeah. Tony walked out tonight with. Yeah, exactly. So yeah, I'm always cool with that. As long as nobody's singing or, any of that shit, we're good. Yep.
Dana, just kind of curious, what are your goals looking like for 2024? You have a big plan. What are some of the goals that you hope to accomplish that you haven't mentioned yet?
In 24, we're gonna be opening the PI in Mexico. We're gonna do a live event down in Mexico. I'm really gonna start grinding down there, and all the plans that I've had over the years. Then, like she was saying before, then is Mexican Independence Day at the Sphere. And as I get, I'm working on that thing now as I get more, I guess as I get my shit together, I will let you know more about how that thing's going, because I got all these plans for it, but I'm working on it right now. So Mexico is huge for us next year. Like I was saying to this gentleman earlier, Leon Edwards winning, and beating Usman twice and beating Colby. The UK is big. I also was saying the other day, I want to start hitting places like Manchester and, other places in the UK other than just London again. And first fight in Saudi Arabia, like we were talking about, that's got to, we got to deliver on that one. So we got some. We've got some big things working that we have to, it's one thing to sit up here and yap about, it's another thing to deliver. Talking about bringing a boxing match to Ireland. A lot of new stuff going on next year. Fun stuff. You done with me? Happy holidays, everybody. You and your family have a great one.